before the board of this. So I'd like to just call for a moment of silence in memoriam of the 17 people that were killed in that terrible, terrible incident. Thank you very much. The mission of the school's mission statement, the Founders Academy, is a public chartered schools encompassing grades 6 through 12 that is free and open to all New Hampshire students. The Academy develops leaders who understand and apply the lessons of the past, demonstrate exceptional character, and lead by example. The Academy recognizes the importance of balance in the development of the whole person and respects each student's journey. Principal leadership is fostered by means of a curriculum of classical studies that includes analyzing the lives of great men and women of history, mining the rich classical ideals of the Western tradition, and by tracing the evolution of the precious and costly idea of liberty. Okay, so I'm going to read from the BEDH about public participation in board meetings. The first 10 minutes will be set aside for the citizens to address the board. This period may be extended by a majority vote of the board. Speakers will be allotted 5 minutes per person. Members of the public may offer comments on agenda items only. The board will not entertain comments on items that do not appear on the agenda. Requests to address the board on matters not on the agenda must be presented to the dean and must set forth the specifics of the subject to be addressed. When appropriate, the board may place such requests on the agenda. Consistent with RSA 91A3, policy BEDB, and the laws pertaining to student and family privacy rights, the board will not place any matter on the public agenda that is to be properly discussed in a non-public session. Complaints regarding individual employees, personnel, or students will be directed to the director in accordance with policies KE and KEB. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene, libelous, defamatory, or violent statements will be considered out of order and will not be tolerated. The board chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if the speaker does not follow this rule of order. Okay, so moving forward, we have one person who signed up for public comments. Patrice?
Yes.
We welcome you to the floor.
Thank you.
For 5 minutes, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want the microphone?
Sure. That'd probably be good. Have that ready. And then I'll go with my voice.
Actually,
There we go.
If
All right.
If I start to go like this, you can let it out.
And then I can go into my song and dance routine. Okay. Good evening. My name is Patrice Bernard, parent of a 10th grade student. I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm here tonight to address some of the many issues that you have on your agenda. You have the budget on your agenda. I'm pleased to say that I just came from a finance committee meeting and progress is being made in getting those reports out. However, after 4.5 years after the charter was approved by the state, it's taken 4.5 years. And much to the chagrin of many, changes only became made after I went public and had to go resort to social media. But I am pleased that at least we're getting results now. So, I say to all of you, you're welcome. You have several, you're going to discuss the charter renewal team and the charter renewal process. I have here in front of me 61 violations of the charter that I have documented. 61 areas where the charter needs to be revised or revamped. You need to take that into consideration. And yet you still have not opened up the doors to ask parents to come in and be a part of this charter renewal process. I would ask you to continue to foster transparency and a spirit of parental involvement. Just ask us. We'll come in, we'll meet with you, and we'll tell you our concerns. If you do not, we have no choice but to resort to social media and any other avenues that are available to us. As I have said before, in my meeting with Mr. Mercier, the first group of parents you need to have in is your high school parents, specifically your 11th graders. I have a son here who wants to graduate from Founders Academy. And in the state of New Hampshire, it is required that he take physical education, health, and civics. I have been accosted by teachers telling me, oh, can't you tone it down? We're going to take care of that. There's things in progress. I said, guess what? I'll believe it when I see it. Put it in writing, show me that's going to happen. Or my son can't get a diploma. Even more concern is for the 11th grade parents. So I'm going to ask you to open up your doors and talk to every 11th grade parent. I'm also going to ask you to review your policy, BEDH. In a school that fosters leadership, you're going to have parents who are also leaders themselves. Parents like myself who have spent years at the Manchester School District speaking in front of their committees. What we're looking for is something where we can be a part, we came here to be a part of our children's education, where we would be welcomed and where we could have a voice and be partners. I would ask you to look at the surrounding districts, see what they're doing, what our sending towns are doing for public comment. I would also ask you, Chairman Mercier, in the charter on page, is it 10 or 11, are the listed subcommittees of the board. I would ask you to post all those subcommittees. Board recruitment, strategic planning and finance, curriculum development, personnel, outreach, and others as needed. This is page 10 of the charter. I would like to know, as Mrs. LaValle has started posting the finance committee meetings, I would like to know when these other committees are meeting so I may attend as well. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Okay. We've got copies of the minutes. Yeah, we've reviewed the minutes from last meeting. I would entertain a motion to adopt the January 22nd, 2018 meetings.
Minutes? Yeah, I will make that motion.
Okay, good. Seconded. So let's put that to a vote. No? Okay, discussion on that matter? No? Cool. So let's have a vote then on to accept the minutes.
All in
All
favor?
in favor. Those opposed? Abstentions? No abstentions. Okay, great. Mr. Gilmont, if you would like to lead us the faculty report.
Thank you. Curriculum Committee is hard at work with the scheduling committee to determine elective courses for next school year. Over 25 elective courses were proposed by teachers in all content areas. High school students completed a survey yesterday to communicate their preferences. The Curriculum Committee is in the process of going through those with the scheduling committee in order to vet those courses, in order to find courses that fit with our mission and vision, and to finalize the schedule for next year. And Mr. McKenzie will be hauled up in his secret office creating that schedule. Okay. Professional Development Day. We had a Professional Development Day on Friday, February 9th. We had a guest speaker, Dr. Amy King from Thomas More College, address the staff on the components and obstacles of the classical education model. And the Drama Club is hard at work on their upcoming production, The Entire American Revolution in 40 Minutes. I saw a little rehearsal. I saw Liam, our student rep, with his acting chops, King George. Okay. Faculty, students, and parents have spent countless nights and weekends rehearsing. I can attest for that. I've been here on the weekends and seen the cars, painting sets, rehearsing, getting costumes sewn. So kudos to you. The showings are Friday, March 9th, and Saturday, March 10th at 7 p.m. here at Founders.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I'd like to recognize Mr. Childers for his student report.
Since we last met, the Senate has continued to do numerous things for the school. Right now, we are planning a spring fling, which last year was a major success, and it was an event that was kind of like a fair, so to speak. We would have round tables, have their own little booths, and have their own little games. A bunch of fun. The date's May 5th, right? Saturday, May 5th. If anybody would like to come, please do. We have also recently been doing many things that become more transparent with the students of the high school as a Senate. For instance, we recently held a town hall meeting, and while not the most successful, we plan to keep on revising it and finally find a formula that sticks, and so we can become more involved with the student body.
Your constituents.
Yes. During the meeting, the students were able to ask the Senate many questions about different aspects of the things we've been doing. The Senate has also been taking over the morning announcements in an effort to make them more fun and exciting. The Senate continues to evolve into a better organization.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Dean, if you'd like to deliver the Dean's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd love to. So much good happens here in the Founders Academy that I look forward to being able to give my report. I'm going to go through some of it. I may not hit all the points for the interest of time. However, my report, like all of my Dean's reports, are found online. So if you go to the agenda of tonight's meeting and you click on here, all of my reports, including this one, are archived. But first of all, I'd like to thank those students that made honor roll. The second quarter ended on January 22nd. Hard to believe we're already at the halfway point of the school year, but it's true. And so our names of those that made the honor roll are posted in our front foyer as well as on our website. They went out in last week's parent newsletter. So the breakdown is here.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Absolutely.
Are there any students here that have attained honor roll status? Please stand up. Be recognized. Sorry.
Very well, that was good. Good item, excellent. Item number 2 is I'd like to review the PSAT scores from the fall of 2017. And so at this time, we're going to display the scores on the wall, and I'm going to ask that our registrar, who's also a band director here at the school since its opening, Mr. Greg McKenzie, present those scores. Now at this point, I would just like to bring out, Mr. McKenzie is the Teacher of the Month for February. And Mr. Chairman, this is so well warranted. As our registrar, he does an enormous amount of work daily. But his work schedule is about to really ramp up because starting tomorrow, starting tonight, and into tomorrow, and into the next day, and probably all weekend and all break too, he starts the very sacred process of drafting the schedules for next school year. The way it starts is with handwritten on the wall, spending all-nighters and everything else to do that first draft that we keep tweaking as the school year goes on. So I just want to commend him for all the work he's done in the past, the work he's about to do, so deserving of Teacher of the Month. And here he is tonight on his own time, willing to present our PSAT scores. So with that, I'll introduce you, Mr. McKenzie.
All right, you take your coffee. I was gonna.
No, I've got my Mountain Dew.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm sure you
fine
need
for
it.
now. So in the fall, students that were in 8th, 9th, and 11th grade took the PSATs. For those of you that are not aware, I wasn't until about a year ago. In 2015, the College Board introduced a new series of PSATs. It used to be that there was just the SATs and the PSATs. If you were basically 11th grade or before, you would take the PSATs, and everyone would take the same test. In 2015, they decided to, create a couple of other tests that are a little bit more tailored to 8th and 9th graders and 10th graders. The 10th grade is only offered in the spring. The 8th and 9th is offered in both the fall and the spring, and the PSAT for the 11th graders, which is what is used to determine national merit finalists. That is offered in the fall. So we have students that, again, took these tests this past fall. I think it was either in October or November. We've got the number of students here that participated. 8th grade we had 53, 9th grade we had 30, 11th grade we had 10. And again, since the PSAT 10 is only offered in spring, those 10th graders will be taking that this spring. What I've got here is we've got our average scores for our school compared to the state and also compared nationally. You can see that for 8th graders, the national average is a score of 805. The state's average is 854. The school's average was 857, so a little bit above that. For 9th grade, the the national average was 860, state average was 907, and the founder's score was 953. And so well above the state average and definitely high above the national average. For the 11th grade, the national average was 1014, state average was 1037, and the founders was 1036, which statistically is basically the same. Now with 11th grade, again with these numbers, 11th grade you kind of have to take some of these numbers with a grain of salt, or most of the numbers, good and the bad, because there are only 10 students that took the test. So if you have 9 people that made what they consider the benchmark, you know, that 10th person might have been 1 question away, and that's a difference, you know, that swings the percentages quite wildly. But as you add more people into the mix, you do get a more accurate representation. Now again, for both the math and English scores, they do what are called benchmarks to see if how students can compare and whether they are basically college or career ready. You can see here that this is the percentage of students that made the benchmarks in both subjects, English and math. Nationally, you can see compared to the rest of the nation, our school, you know, compared favorably, and in 9th grade, you know, again, statistically, it's about the same. A little bit lower in terms of compared to the state. Now, I do not have these scores compared to the rest of Manchester. These are the only numbers that I was able to get. I'm sure other community members will be able to find those city averages. Now, I've got it also here broken down by subject area. So we've got English. Here are the benchmark scores for each grade. So 8th grade, 9th grade, 11th grade. You can see that for English, in all cases, our average score was well above the benchmark and well above the state and the national average. Okay, New Hampshire is obviously a state that tends to outperform the rest of the nation. So in fact, our bar is, you know, kind of high. So in English, you know, we were able to surpass our state averages. In terms of reaching the benchmark, again, you can see, you know, we had 90% of our students that in the 11th grade took it, reached the benchmark, and 81% of the 8th graders, 83% of the 9th graders, again, beating state averages and beating the national averages. For the math, okay, we've got, here's our math scores. You can see that in 8th grade, our average obviously is lower than the state average. Okay, it is lower than the benchmark, but it is higher than the national average. Okay, in terms of making the benchmark, we have 34% here, which compares about, statistically about the same to the national average, definitely lower than the state average. For 9th grade, okay, we were about, our average was about at the benchmark, beating both the state average and the national average in terms of scores. Beat the national average in terms of the students actually making the benchmark, and a little bit below the state average. Now, again, some of those things are skewed because when you have the averages, if you have a student that scored really high, if you've got only 30 9th graders taking it, you can swing that average high. If you've got a student that is not having a good day and decide to fill in C for all the answers, that can swing the averages wildly the other way. Then in 11th grade, we've got the benchmark 510. And our school scored lower on both the state average and the national average. 3 out of the 10 students that we have made the benchmark for the high school math, compared to 51% in the state, 46% for the national average. And you can tell that you know, when looking at the percentage reaching the benchmark in math versus English, statewide, nationwide, most students are having trouble in math. Okay. the percentages are quite a bit lower. Final chart that we have, this is the percentage of students not reaching the benchmark in either English or math. You can see that our numbers are lower compared to the state average and well below the national average. So most of our students made at least the benchmark in either English and or math.
Thanks. Extraordinary.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna, I appreciate that very much. And also, what we'll be placing in the parent newsletter this Friday, a link to those scores, to that chart. Thank you. Our Teacher of the Month for January was Ms. Nichols. We want to thank her for her dedication to mathematics and her guidance with multiple student-initiated clubs. She at one point told a student who was encouraging him or her to start a club and said, "No, I'll help you with it. I will advise you through it." So actually reaching out in that way, and so for that reason was recognized as Teacher of the Month for January. Our volunteer of the month was Jason DePietro for January. He does a fantastic job helping with the first tech challenge competitions, here all day on Saturdays after school, helping, advising. I've seen him in action, and an honor very well received. Mayor Joyce Craig, new mayor of Manchester, first female Manchester mayor, visited our school on January 30th. And she did it within the first month of her being inaugurated. I think that's quite a compliment to Founders Academy. She was given a 12-point tour from student senators, Liam included, and they do a fantastic job of highlighting various areas of our school, and she left very impressed. Students of the second quarter, Leah DePietro, a big season for the DePietro family, seeing as though father volunteer of the month for January and daughter student of the second quarter. So I can't go without recognizing that point. She was the student of the quarter for high school, and her peers said she's exceedingly respectful and polite. And I tell you, getting to know her and getting to know her and her teachers, what they say about her, it's very accurate. So it's good that her peers recognized her for that. Carolina Gill is the student of the quarter for middle school, and her nominations by her peers said that she helps new students, which is very important because it's not easy to transfer in, and to have a student step up and assist is really quite outstanding. So again, recognized as student of second quarter. As Michael mentioned, Dr. Amy Fahey was here to talk to our faculty. She's an adjunct professor at the Thomas More College of Liberal Arts in Merrimack, New Hampshire. Her husband is the president of the Thomas More College of Liberal Arts. Full disclosure, I'm a graduate and I'm on the board of Thomas More College of Liberal Arts. And their curriculum deals with the classicism that we say in our mission statement, and also great books. So she gave a talk that was geared towards what is a classical education? How do we institute it on a middle and a high school level? And what obstacles could come up in a classical education for those in middle and high school? So it was very good, and we hope to have her back for a part 2.
Was that recorded by any chance?
It was not, and I regret that to a very large extent. So we did take notes. I took notes, actually a faculty member took notes as well. It's available in the faculty hub folder that the faculty have access to, but I'll see what I can do about getting that out there too. Job fair and interviewing. We have our 3rd annual job fair coming up on March 7th. So this is a period of time, 3 hours, where people can sign up online, applicants, in a certain subject area to interview in 10-minute segments and introduce themselves and the like. It's always been very popular in the past, and the slots are filling up, as you can see online, for this year. In addition to that, that sort of kicks off the interview season for next year. And we will be hiring. We do anticipate positions due to growth, so this is a very important time. I've asked the department chairman to take a lead role this year, larger than they have in the past, in interviewing, doing initial interviews for job candidates. In fact, I met with them at 3:30 today to go over the interview process. They have created a rubric of sorts based on questions about our mission, questions about classroom management, questions about their experience, handling 504s, IEPs, all of the things that we've gone over, but they've created a rubric so that all of their interviews will be somewhat uniform. Then there's opportunities to guest teach, and then I would come in at a later time based on the department chair's recommendations for second interviews. So I really give our department chairman a tremendous amount of credit. They're balancing course loads as well as lesson planning. They've taken on a huge role with student discipline this year in terms of handling any yellow slips that would come from their department. And now they've eagerly taken on the challenge of doing this larger role for interviewing. So I commend them and I look forward to their work.
It's extraordinary. Thank you.
Admissions information night, our last one was on February 6th. There were 37 families in attendance. I want to remind everybody that the deadline for admissions has been extended. It's March 7th now. Actually the same day as our job fair, but unrelated. And the placement dates, placement exam dates are March 10th and 24th. So I want to thank Mrs. Hyatt for her work in admissions. She's done a great job in terms of getting families to attend our open houses and also managing the admissions. I know the admissions report is later in the agenda, but she has as part of her report how many have attended admission nights this year. So I'm going to read that. On October 19th, it was 45 families. On November 6th, it was 37 families. January 22, 41 families. And then on February 6th, that's my typo there, but February 6th, it was 37 families. So that's great in terms of word getting out. The school's safety committee meets regularly on Tuesdays, and they discuss various things to make our school safe for various issues or things that need addressing and the like. So most recently, all of our staff, faculty and staff included, have watched a series of what's called safe school videos based on a variety of things, whether it's an in-school intruder or, for example, bodily fluids that could be on floor, what have you, somebody's bleeding and the like, an emergency. So these were very well received. There was a deadline by which our faculty and staff was all to watch them by, and certainly it was good that everybody went through that training. Student services always remains very busy, and they had a college overview for juniors night on February 8th. They also wanted me to announce that all juniors will be taking the SAT on March 21st here at Founders Academy. So they're working very hard in terms of any sort of college counseling or prep that our high school students may need. Definitely want to thank so many people. As you know, it takes so many to make a successful school. There is no doubt about it. But particularly this month, I want to thank the members of the PTSA, all of the meetings of which I try very hard to attend, and I'm always very taken by the dedication and goodwill of the members that attend. They're working right now. They had a fundraising committee last night, and they're working on various fundraisers throughout the year, and then they're going to determine where to spend that money for the school, whether it's a large project or for classrooms or departments or teachers, and I do want to thank them. It was a good crowd last night and always a good discussion. For those of you who cannot make the meeting, incidentally, it's actually streamed on Facebook. Mr. Lawton has taken the time and the technology expertise to be able to make that viral. So those of you who can't attend in person have that option. And maybe at some point we could get the link so that those in the newsletter or what have you could have access to it. I also want to thank Kristen Apostolos, was a parent here. She's provided several suggestions for us in terms of smoothing out our process for when a student transfers in. And that kind of advice and counsel, especially someone having gone through the process, is very valuable. So I appreciate her contacting me, reaching out, and having some suggestions to make that smoother for future transfer students. I want to thank our student videographers in Ms. Marcotte's class. They put together a short video clip for our open house that was very well received and had all the pertinent information there. It was done very well. And so I want to thank them, and they hope to do several more in the future for various events that we have, almost like commercials, which is fantastic for our school in terms of getting the word out. Also want to thank the Manchester Police Department, especially Officer Lindstad, who's been our point person for our school now for some time. We have a great relationship with him, for assisting with our most recent lockdown drill. At the time of our most recent lockdown drill, we had not one, but 2 members of the Manchester Police Department on site and going through and critiquing our lockdown drill. At the end of the drill, I specifically asked Officer Lindstad if I could put out there that we did an excellent job and that we were in line with our protocol. He said, absolutely. Absolutely. In talking with him just this past week, he revealed to me that our school, Founders Academy, he goes all around, he knows his lockdown drills here in the city, is in the top 2 of all the schools in Manchester, New Hampshire, in terms of being in line with its lockdown drills and procedure and organization. Mr. Chairman, that is extraordinary. Mr. Chairman, that is extraordinary to hear that from our Manchester Police Department, especially when headlines are quite frightening, quite disturbing. And anyone who would even hint that this school is not adequate, after having worked so closely with the Manchester Police Department, working so closely with our faculty and staff to be sure that we are prepared, is at a minimum inappropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your report. Under the heading of board business, we have I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of the board, the staff, the parent steering committee, and anyone else who's been involved in bringing us a whole rack of wonderful candidates for board membership. We're going to talk about them individually. They're going to talk about themselves. Then we'll talk about them, but that's another story. So we're going to take a minute for each candidate, 2 external candidates and 4 parent candidates, to talk about their desire to be on our board of directors and their qualifications to do so, and a little bit of background. So if you would all consider just a few minutes, a minute or 2 about who you are, and a minute or 2 about why you're here, and a minute or 2 about what you intend to bring to the table. I would welcome all of that at the podium, if you'd be so kind. The first of the candidates that we'll hear from is Bob Best. Mr. Best.
Thank you, Chairman Mercier. I don't need a microphone. It should be plenty loud enough. My name is Bob Best. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate being able to introduce myself and hopefully convince you that I would be a good candidate for a role on the board. I'm an attorney, partner at Sullivan, Hollis, and Concord, and Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Maine, regional firm. I live in Merrimack. I have 4 children. Prior to being an attorney, I was a hospital administrator, a healthcare administrator. I have a degree in biomedical engineering before that, and I used to do clinical research. I included my bio in the letter that I sent, and I'll sort of leave that for more information about me and really talk about something more important, which is you in the school and what you guys are doing. I've been a supporter of charter schools and school choice. Practically as early as I sort of knew what their concept was, and also of the Founders Academy. Before, a couple of years ago, I had the honor of helping out with the admission lottery and making the selections for the folks that were trying to get into those valued and rare spots for admission. I also make a small contribution through the United Way to the Founders Academy because I know that the finances are always important and a struggle. I've taken a bit of interest in charter schools in general, representing a different charter school in my law practice, and getting a chance to read the charter and understand the mission. And the classical education mission with the focus on great people through history, I think is an amazing thing to build a school around and build a concept around. I think that we don't look and study, we don't even want to call some of the people in history great anymore, and I think that's a shame. and finding those great people in history and figuring out what it is that we can do to stand on their shoulders and learn from them, I think is amazing. And so that's why I want to be a part of the board, and hopefully my experience as an attorney or a board member on the planning board in Merrimack, or working with other nonprofits, being on other boards, the Long-Term Care Foundation and a few others that I've been a part of, would make me a decent candidate. So that's all I've got. Hopefully that's a good introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Yeah, feel free. So what we're going to do is we're going to have all the candidates present themselves. We'll have discussion and then call for a vote. Yeah.
Okay, so we are not gonna ask the questions, then, we're just gonna let them think themselves.
Yeah, no, feel free. That's a great.
No, I don't wanna
Nope,
change the.
no, it's a better idea than the one that I had, so please.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't have to penetrate in a question or anything, but, in fact, I really don't have a question, I just thought we should ask questions.
Okay, okay. Go.
Do you have any committees, any areas that you would be able, willing to join, whether it's finance or the outreach committee? Have you had a chance to look at any of that?
I read the whole charter. I don't remember all the specific roles of the committees. I would be glad to join in wherever it is that my skills could help, but certainly with finance, outreach. I don't know a whole lot about curriculum, so that's probably not my best area. But wherever it is that I could be of use, I think that when you put yourself in a role to be on a board or volunteer for an organization, it's for the benefit of the organization and not for me to choose and direct, but wherever the need is, that's where you go.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Best? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
The next would-be candidate or the next candidate we'll hear from is Barbara Comtois. Barbara, would you come and address us, speak with us?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Turn the microphone on if you'd like. Here, let me help.
Not my forte.
It's just a switch.
You didn't speak as well.
Everybody all right?
Okay. So again, just thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. I appreciate the fact that Founders does base their curriculum on the classical curriculum, and that they look to our past history to guide leadership today. I think that's extremely important. Full disclosure, I am a corporate accountant. I'm also a farmer. I deal with hydroponics and animals, a state rep, and I believe in service to our community, and I also homeschooled my 2 children. And an advocate for school choice and for charter schools. My oldest son actually worked on the campaign of Senator Forsythe, who was instrumental in passing legislation to establish charter schools in the state. So I just appreciate the opportunity to be here and would welcome any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Questions, folks?
I have the same question. What areas would you be interested in joining? Do you have a sense whether, with your background, it seems like the finance committee would be a great opportunity for you to participate in a committee?
Again, wherever my service is needed, I would be more than happy.
Recognizing too that in alignment with the charter, there will be some other committees being spun up in the next little bit here. And that will give still more opportunity for those of us who are on the board and others who are not to participate. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So those are our 2 external candidates. We have also, from the Parents Steering Committee, we have the privilege of meeting 4 candidates. I'd like to ask Sue Lawton to come to the podium.
Thank you. Good evening. During the day, in my back clothes that I wear, I'm a solutions engineering project manager. So what does that mean? That means that I have organizations, I have teams of people that are literally around the globe. My job is to make sure that the customers and all of my team members know what is the scope, is the budget all good, is the timeline good, and if it's not, raise the flag and talk about it. you can imagine that doing this job, talking to people around the world, when English is not the primary language, and trying to get people to technically agree with one another, communication is a big thing for me. Our family learned at the Founders Academy when my son was looking at middle school. And Manchester Public was not an option for us. And there was this website about the Founders Academy. And I couldn't really find much else, but it was this website. And then there was this evening over at West High School that we could go hear what was going on. We left West High School, I was, all about it. I thought this was great. Some other member of my family may not have been completely on board at that time. We then drove by this building, which had potholes big enough to swallow elephants, but we still, it ended up, it just felt right. Classical education, performing arts, humanities, these were all things that our son could absolutely thrive. So we took the opportunity, we took the leap, we put the application in, and now we're here. We have, as of last fall, we started hearing rumors at meetings that we were attending that there were issues with the school, there were issues with finances, there were just issues. Both my husband and I decided to take a more active role here in the community. We reached out to teachers to ask questions. We reached out to administration to ask questions, a lot of them. I decided that I wanted to join the finance committee because I wanted to see the finances firsthand. Luckily, I can tell you without any hesitation, no teacher, no administrator, a couple of parents maybe, no one ever avoided my questions. It might have taken us a long time to get through a lot of questions, but the administration was completely there for me. Board members have made themselves available to me, and I am so pleased we are at the school. To the point of, we knew that the school needed a parent-teacher organization, and my husband and I, we spent a lot of time making sure that we could be part of standing that up and be part of hearing what other families are feeling in the school. An overwhelming majority of people that we spoke with don't want other people talking for them. When we walk into PTSA meetings, people are telling us that they're happy. They don't understand what they're reading on Facebook. Well, to that end, I am very happy to say that I am a nominee to be a parent seat on this board. I would like very much to be able to bring those voices forward. I would like to be able to make them feel part of the community and not like they have to stay away because they don't know what's going to happen at a meeting. I believe with my support of this school for my son, with the PTSA, with the finance committee, I believe that I would be able to be a good voice here for a number of parents. So with that, I am Susan Lawton. I am the 9th grade representative nominee for the Board of Trustees seat for parents. Thank you.
Thanks. Questions, anyone?
Sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
In your background, problem resolution,
Yes.
what's your approach to it? If you're coming in and we know that there is some unrest out there, what is your approach to it?
Listen. We have to listen. We have to come forward with facts. It's very important, not hearsay. Hearsay is fine to start a conversation. I'm okay with that. But we have to have facts to be able to act on it. And you can't just hide somewhere and talk about feeling frustrated. My goal is to help everybody feel like they can be part of the solution. By the way, when I should actually say, there have been times when I have absolutely marched into the school with a head of steam. And I've never been turned away. I've never, not been able to talk about my issue or my problem. Sure, the answer may possibly not have been what I wanted. But as a family, we choose to come here every day. It's up to us. We don't have to. There's not one family in this building that has to be here. But every single thing that we have walked through, every single challenge we have been there for, I would hope that I could help other people get through those conversations and be able to help them understand that it's just a phone call. Nobody's going to turn you away. So that would be my goal, is to help people feel like they're heard, listen, active listening, and maybe help have a couple meetings together.
Wonderful. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. The next, again, sent to us by the Parent Steering Committee. The next candidate is John Petito. John, if you'll take that. I can promise you have all the time.
Thank you. My name is John DePietro. I'm a father of 2 students here at the Founders Academy, an 11th grader and a 6th grader. And I have a really powerful story to tell about my 11th grade daughter and how this school, in my opinion, single-handedly pulled her out of the academic drain that she was circling. I can't share the details that would really bring the story to life, because she'd be absolutely mortified and she wouldn't talk to me for a month if I shared them publicly. But you'll have to take my word for it, that this school is the mission of this school is a dream come true for me. It's everything I wanted and want in a school for my kids. I am a supporter in the ideals of liberty, not just in terms of my ideology, but in terms of where I spend my time. I volunteer for liberty-minded organizations in the city and in the state. I've been a business owner for 20 years. I've been self-employed, I've been a consultant, I've started a software company. And so in terms of the mission of the school, I think that I've sort of walked a mile in those shoes. My background, I mean, what I do now is I'm a digital marketer, so I do websites and advertising for customers. So in terms of your question, outreach committee probably would be sort of in my wheelhouse. But before that, I was an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer, and the particular discipline I started my career in was automation engineering. So I built assembly lines and robots and worked on gas pipelines and beverage filling machines. And so I think that the first impression people have when they hear engineer is, oh, you build things, you make things. And you sort of assume that you're making things from scratch. Actually, in my career, that was a rare opportunity for me. I loved it when I could do that, but I was a process improvement expert. I had to fix things while they were running or with very little downtime. And so my whole life and in my whole career, I tend to focus on what's wrong and what can be improved. And that gets construed as sometimes as me being a negative person. But it's my DNA to identify, hey, that part of the machine's running slow, I can make that run faster. Or this part is broken, I can fix that. So I view myself as a fixer of problems, and that's why I want to join this board. I've been an education advocate for 8 years, beginning in the Manchester schools, where some of my kids did well there, a couple not so much, and that's why I'm here. But I've also been a volunteer leader for 15 years in the International Society of Automation. I started out in the Boston section, had all the leadership roles there, was president of the chapter, and then moved up to the national level about 10 years ago. I started out as a division director, earned Most Improved Division Award 2 years later, won the Emerging Leader Award for the Society. I was the Vice President of Strategic Planning, and I've been on its executive board for the last 5 years and served on its Finance Committee for the last 4 years, so that's another committee where I think my experience lines up. So, interestingly enough, my involvement in this other volunteer organization came at a time where there was a lot of strife going on within the society, and volunteer leadership had sort of divided itself into 2 factions. and it's too strong to say they were at war, but there was a lot of conflict there. And over the next couple of years, as part of my leadership roles, my involvement on the executive board, I helped build a lot of bridges and put out a lot of fires there. And we fixed a lot of things, and the society is running a lot better today than it was when I started working 8 years ago, and continue to work today. And so that's my experience, that's my perspective. Above all else, like I said, I just really believe in the mission and the ideals of this school. Does that mean my time's up?
No, sir.
And so, having students here, one in 6th grade, I'm in this for the long haul, and want to do everything I can to help the school succeed. And I think I've got experience and drive to help with that.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of John?
Well, pique my curiosity slightly. You said you like to fix problems. So you probably feel there are problems. And I'd like you to just tell us what you think is the most serious problem.
Well, I think there are two ways to answer that question. I think there's a perception of what the most serious problem is, and in the context of the people sitting in this room, right? There's a lot of tension here, and there has been for about a year, and it's been growing. So I think that is one of the serious problems that needs to be addressed. And one of the questions that was asked of one of the other candidates was about conflict resolution. And listening is certainly step one. My approach to conflict resolution is establishing trust. And the challenge with that is you can't do that quickly. You have to build that over a period of time. And so I think that in terms of remedying that issue, that's going to take time. But my approach would be to build trust in various directions that you need to. In terms of the school itself, in my experience, again, been here 4 years since day one, it's the math curriculum. I think that has some deficiencies and needs to be addressed.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Anyone else? Thank you, sir. The next candidate that we have before us is Christine Wright. Please step up, Christine. Welcome.
Thanks. I am Christy Willett. I know most of you. My daughter is in 10th grade here and has been since before day one. And this school really was the answer to everything we were looking for as well. She was in the Merrimack Public School System, and they kept saying, you need to stop, slow down, let everybody catch up to you. And that started in kindergarten when she was reading to groups of children instead of getting some instruction on her own. So this really was a school we were looking for something that would allow her to go at her own pace. So when she started here, she was able to start in Algebra 1, whereas in Merrimack it would have been pre-algebra, and that was her only option. So for a lot of reasons, this school has been a huge gift to us. And she earns it every day. She's involved in as many things as she can possibly get her hands into. She's actually been told a few times that maybe she needs to reduce the committees that she tries to be a part of. But one of the things in our family that we try to do is be involved, be active in things that matter to us. And so this school has mattered to us a great deal. And so when this started to come about, that there was going to be a seat on the board, I wanted to throw my hat in the ring because I feel like there are some things that I could potentially help with. And I have some of the background to back that up. I have a bachelor's degree in education. I was an administrator of an early childhood program after teaching for several years. So I have some experience dealing with parents, with teachers, people that are happy and people that are not happy. And so part of that, being on a board, I imagine that skill would be helpful to make sure people feel heard and are able to kind of address issues and then move on.
Can I get a hello?
Yeah. Since then, I actually also worked for the state of New Hampshire as a child care licensing specialist, so I'm very akin to having difficult conversations. So if I hadn't learned it as being an administrator, being an inspector of programs and going and dealing with investigations and dealing with concerns regarding children educationally and safety-wise is something that I'm familiar with as well. Right now, I own a business, so this is actually the second business I've owned. The first one was professional development opportunities for teachers. So I would teach seminars and workshops. And then I had to give that baby up when I launched the latest business because there is only 24 hours in a day, and that's where I decided to put my passion towards that. So like Susan mentioned, I have had issues over the years that we've been here, but I have found that dealing directly with them, whether that meant calling up a teacher and asking for a meeting, calling the dean and saying, hey, I'm not happy, we need to have a conversation. Like Susan's experience, the door has always been open to me. It has always been an opportunity to come in, say whatever I want, and then hear what will be done. Sometimes it's, sorry, that's what the decision is, and then had to make a decision about what we were going to do, and we're still here and as committed as ever. So I feel like that's something that I can bring as well, you know, the knowledge that there is a way to address issues directly with the people involved, and then handle yourself that way.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Christy?
As a board member with your background in teaching, PD for teachers and so forth, would you be willing to step into some of those roles or perhaps start a committee that helps with professional development?
Absolutely. The only reason I don't do that anymore is the travel company took over.
Right.
But I still love it. I'm passionate about it. So I would absolutely work on a committee like that and offer workshops for teachers as well.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Thank you very much, Christy. Appreciate your help. Finally, let's call to the podium Moira Ryan, another representative of the Parent Steering Committee. Welcome.
Hello. I have to apologize. I had to go clean out a storage unit today, so I'm dirty. My name is Moira Ryan. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, Oracle, Lucent Technologies, Avaya, dealing with communications. My original degree was in education. I did classics, so I've done Latin, Greek, French, Spanish, Russian, and German. I actually have 5 degrees, including a master's in business administration. My original was education, and I'm also a licensed registered nurse, and I do education CEUs as well as medical CEUs every year. I'm on the special advisory committee to the education commissioner. I specialize in being an educational advocate for students with disabilities, 504s, IEPs. I have a lot of knowledge on that. I also, because I have an MBA, can read financial statements, and I do know all the federal components as to how much money comes in and goes out for each student, et cetera. My son comes to this school and he's kind of a firecracker. He likes being here because he gets challenged with the Socratic method. And that is something that I think is impressive because students today have trouble with critical thinking. And if you have somebody that you're taking care of in the hospital, you want to make sure that they can make an accurate decision because it may be your life in question. I do tend to like the fundraising committee because I love that. But I would also be interested in curriculum, and I have brought suggestions to the school before in trying to utilize Khan Academy, PSAT prep course, things like that. My son did robotics team last year, which was an amazing experience for him, and unfortunately the FRC didn't take off this year, but next year it should be on track. And I come to the school every day and volunteer. I know there's a portion of the handbook, and I can't cite the exact page, but it does say that parents need to be involved, and if their student is not doing well, you need to contact the teacher and take ownership of that, which I do. And I'm coming to the school every day, as I said, and I see some of the things going on, and I would like to help try and make it a positive and better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Questions, folks?
What would be your first area that you take on, that you'd like to get involved with?
I would prefer to do fundraising, but I do know quite a bit about curriculum. I did also teach in the military, and they were adult students that I was prepping to become officer candidates, so I did have to deal with the other side of public school where students come out with not an adequate education to pass an officer training exam.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Nothing. Okay, thank you very much, Maura. Maura is the last of our, good luck. Thanks. Maura is the last of our candidates. So what we're going to do then is call for discussion on these candidates one by one, and then we'll move to vote. Any discussion about candidate best?
Having read his bio and resume, which is multiple pages, it's impressive. And I think he brings a great deal to the board as an external candidate, which we do need. The law background is critical. That's all very helpful to the school.
Wonderful. Anybody else have anything to add?
Just a gratitude that somebody as busy as he is, as super qualified as he is really to serve.
Any discussion about Ms. Comtois?
I welcome the finance background that she brings. I'd like to have more conversations about that if she's from on board.
Wonderful. What else? Anyone?
Just again, strong skill set, same thing with attorney, many boards I've sat on, those are two key.
Yeah, you know, as I sat, just some commentary in general. I don't have anything in particular about the individual candidate, but I'm struck by how qualified and the skill sets that they all bring to bear for us and for you and for the school. I don't think that there could, you know, this is a very rich group of candidates, and I'm extraordinarily appreciative that they're willing to dedicate their time. Any discussion on Mrs. Lawton?
Just that her enthusiasm for the school, her articulateness in expressing it, her intelligence is very gratifying to somebody who has worked hard to create this school. And I'm so pleased that she feels that we're going this Friday here, and that means a lot too. And of course, the same thing, that with this very busy life, that she's willing to put in the extra time.
I've had the privilege of sitting over coffee with Mrs. Lawton, and we had a longer than anticipated and very fruitful conversation over Starbucks coffee, which I don't care for, at Barnes & Noble, but the conversation made up for the coffee that burned the roof of my mouth.
Yeah, I know two things that we don't really care for. One is Starbucks coffee, and the other is
It's New Orleans. Well, that's a different discussion. Happy to talk about my New Orleans vacation offline. Any conversation about Mr. DePietro?
I would say Mr. DePietro brings problem-solving skills just by the nature of his background being an engineer, and I was looking to identify the way to fix it. I did have a conversation with him about that, and I think that is something that is very beneficial right now to the board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any conversation, further conversation about Ms. Willett?
just the same really as Mrs. Lawton. I'm so glad that this school means a lot to you. Thank you for all the contributions you've already made. Thank you for giving us Allison. It is a privilege to be her school. I'm so glad that she's here. And also the skill set, the teacher development. Wow, that's something that we haven't emphasized on the board, but there could be a rich area for the exploration and development.
I think the content expertise would be a great addition.
Yeah.
And finally, any conversation about Ms. Ryan? She does know a lot. 5 degrees, is that what you said?
Correct, and multiple certifications as well.
That's straight.
She's been very devoted to her little boy and very helpful with the school on a daily basis. It is very moving to see her here every day, helping us out and helping him out. That's quite an extraordinary thing.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm kind of bumbling along here, but I think the next step is to ask for a motion we'll go through the list of candidates again, one at a time, ask for a motion for a vote, and take a vote. Remember that we're not obligated to vote for anyone, nor are we prohibited from voting for everyone. You know, everyone is a wonderfully qualified candidate, as near as I can see. And as you'll see by the way I voted, I would welcome them all. So
that means we could say more than 2 parents, or no?
Not tonight. Right now, the parent
Yeah.
steering committee, we take 2 this evening. And if we need to go back to and look at the board seats that might still be open, and then see if the parent fits one of those roles, we can go back and look at that.
I stand corrected. We're voting on 2 external candidates and 2 of 4 internal, you know, or BS parent steering committee candidates. And then, so in case for those who couldn't hear Mrs. LaValle, we'll then go back and take a look at the structure, per the charter, the structure. Per the charter, the structure of the board, and we may next month, if it's appropriate, re-invite the candidates that don't get voted in tonight for an appropriate vote. Thank you, Ms. Bernard. We can talk about it afterward. Yeah.
Just to remind Mr. Chairman that the faculty representative and the dean do not vote on this board. I do want to remind the audience of that. It's not that we are disinterested or disconnected, it's just that the rules say we don't vote. So just as a reminder, I want to
Thank
point
you for
that out.
that. Yes, that's an important point. So I will entertain a motion to vote for Mr. Best, or to vote a second.
A second.
Second.
For a 1-year term.
Thank you. Yes, the length of the board term is 1 year. So, thank you. All those in favor of welcoming Mr. Best to the board, say aye. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a roll call, okay? Just so that we can be sure about who voted for what. Christy, what would you like to vote? Aye. Mrs. Humphrey? Mrs. Valley? Aye, and my vote as well is aye. Welcome to the board, Mr. Best, Attorney Best.
Sitting here now and voting together?
Yes.
Well, no,
Yep.
he would.
Everyone be voting?
Nope, you're welcome to the table.
Oh, okay.
Okay, come on up if you'd like. The next.
I don't want to pick between those parent candidates.
Well, fortunately, we don't get to vote for them, so welcome to the table, not to the vote. I'd like to take a motion to vote on the board membership of Barbara Comtois.
I would make a motion for Barbara Comtois for 1 year as a board member.
Okay, a second? Excellent. All those in favor, now we've discussed. All those in favor of Ms. Comtois' candidacy? Aye. Aye from Christie, aye from Patty, Kim, aye, and my vote too is aye. Thank you. So now, it breaks my heart to know. Yes, please, I'm sorry, yeah, Barbara, come on up. It breaks my heart to know that as it stands today, we'll only be voting for 2 of the 4 internal candidates or steering committee candidates. Does anyone want to make a motion to vote on Ms. Lott? Christine and Patty, thank you for a 1-year term. Roll call vote, Christine? Aye. Patty? Aye. Kim? And my vote too is aye. Mr. DePietro, I will make a motion to vote on Mr. DePietro. Do I have a second? Yes. What's that? We can vote on all 4, but we don't have to vote for, we can only welcome 2 people to the board today. It's been suggested that that's not the case, but as for the plan for today, we're going to just accept 2 folks. We can vote on them all, but.
Then how do we know which one if we accept them all?
Yep, yeah, and so if you believe that two of these people will join our board today, I would encourage you to vote for 2 people. If that goes any other way, if you want to vote for 3 or 4, we'll all come on the wash. Okay? as I can tell. Again, and with the clarity, I'll ask for a second for a vote on Mr. DePietro.
I'll second the motion.
So going around in a roll call then, Christie, your vote?
No for today.
Okay. Patty?
No for today.
No for today. Kim?
No for today.
Okay. My vote will be yes for today. Now, I'll entertain a motion to vote on Christie Willett.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
excellent. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye. From Christie, Patty?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, am I compelled to vote nay because I've already voted aye twice? No?
I don't know.
I will vote aye. Finally, Ms. Ryan's candidacy, I'll entertain a motion to vote on her candidacy.
Yes, I'll second.
Oh, no, I entertain a
I'll
motion.
make the
Yep,
motion.
Yep, and a second? Okay. Hearing no second, will not vote on Ms. Ryan. Sue, come on up to the table if you would, please, and welcome. And so
And Christie?
yeah, that's according to, you took the vote, yeah? Okay, so Christie, come on up, welcome. Excellent, excellent. You have the missions report? Can you add something?
I'd
Sure.
like to add to the board seats. We have an advisory board, and I would like to offer that as a place for parents to start becoming more involved as we move forward. So there were a lot of really great ideas that were discussed tonight in areas of improvement. People have ideas on how to fix it. I'd like to start with that as a great opportunity. Not just a school board, not just a board of trustees seat, there is that, and we will look at the charter seats available and go back. I think in March might be a good time to do that. To rename openings.
Perfect. And if there is some clarification that I'm not aware of, I'm happy to entertain that discussion offline. The next item on the agenda is to read the admissions report. Dean Mooney has been kind enough to share with us the admissions night numbers. So I'll only read the paragraph above. Admissions, to date, there are 132 applications in process. The 100 received applications are as follows: 74 in the 6th grade, 18 in the 7th grade, 5 in the 8th grade, 2 in the 9th grade, and 0 in 10th grade, 1 in the 11th grade, and 0 in the 12th grade. A total of 71 completed applications at this time. So to make the distinction, there are 132 applications in process, and 71 are completed. Yeah? So, new business. At the last meeting, we committed to modifying the roles and responsibilities for civic board members. We met on that and chose to postpone that briefly until we had the newly seated board members on board, so that we can have their fresh perspective and their input to the roles and responsibilities. So that'll be coming forward next month. We've received some great input from the community, and we'll respond. So plan on that for next month. Okay, the non-public language.
I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that our new members forward to me their bios for the website as soon as is possible. We do want to print that out and compile it for our documentation and so on. So the sooner you can get to me a paragraph for the website of who's a trustee, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That was way up here. I'm sorry. So I neglected apparently to ask Ms. LaValle for the treasurer's report. So I will go back so we'll now hear the treasurer's report from Ms. LaValle. Thank you.
The financials are posted online. Again, this month, they're linked to the agenda. The line of credit, just as an update, remains at 0. We have gone through the revised budget that we're currently operating under tonight at the Finance Committee meeting. Couple areas that we believe we may go over the threshold that's established in it. This budget will be brought to the March meeting to be voted on. It was revised based on current enrollment numbers. And one of the areas right now is going to be the building. We know that we're going to go over what we've set aside for the building improvements based on, I think it was a total of 7 roof leaks they were here fixing. So, but we're still running below the revised budget numbers. Just like the last 2 years, we came in under budget. Working hard to keep that and hope that happens again this year. Bookkeeper is working out. It's wonderful. She is able to reconcile January is closed. That's something that we've struggled with in the past due to time. We are currently closed for January. She's begun February, so that's a great help. And one clarification on the document that is online, something that was raised tonight in the Finance Committee, I think by Patrice in fact, and I just want to bring it to people's attention. We have student activities as a group. These are the student clubs. They are funded by student fundraisers or contributions of various kinds. That money is there. We allow them to keep that money. That is there. So if they don't spend it this year, we roll it over for the following year. Even though it's in our budget, technically that really does belong to the student clubs. So just a number. It's number 9, I believe, on the document that was handed out on the year-to-date figures.
Excellent. Now we just, unless I'm mistaken, we just accept the treasurer's report rather than. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So do you have a language change for the non-public session?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to go into non-public based on 91A:3-L. Consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote then to go into non-public. Christie?
Aye.
And my vote too is aye. Yeah, please do stay, Maureen, if you would.
I will.
And